Good day and welcome. This session I'd like to talk about hands and feet, one of the more challenging parts of drawing a human. We started with the capital I method of drawing a person and in proportion. We then moved to building up the body, and now we want to talk about the hands. Now the hands itself, is something that with all things that we draw, we have to observe them. We have to look at them for what they are. Now, if I look at this in a very simple and fast way, I look and I see a mitten. And this is the one I always suggest all students look at doing. Creating a mitten like you were in winter, and it's a very good and fast start. When we go around looking at our hands, we can think, okay, where and what shape is that mitten? This mitten can be, as you see right here, straightforward. It can be curved and curls, which in that case looks like a ball or oval. And those are the things we look for when we draw the basics, hands and shapes and things of that nature. So if I take my hand right now and I did an oval like this, with the wrist out here, I do have the basic start to it all. Well, most people will say, well, there's a lot of details I'm seeing. There is a thumb section, and if you were to create a thumb section like this, you'd get the basic start there. We also have another element right here, as you can see, where the actual knuckles are, and that comes down. And when we look at that, we've got a basic shape, a basic mitten in that form. Well, you can go simply to looking for the lines we need here, and then dividing it into what we have. That actually is the same idea for the mitten. The mitten itself, is the thumb starting at the back, your fingers outwards like this. Now here's an interesting thing that we have to talk about, as we did with the others, proportions. Once again, we have to use one thing and relate it to other things. If I take my middle finger right here, and I look to see how long that middle finger is related to other things, I can understand how to draw this more accurately. Middle finger, from the knuckle there to your wrist, is about equal. So this is actually giving us an idea of what we can do to start with. Middle finger to the knuckle to the wrist, equal distance. The fingers here are smaller in relation to the middle finger. So that gives us our good point now. Where does our thumb come from if it's beside it? Well, it's just about the knuckle line. So this means from the back to just beyond the knuckle line is actually where the thumb will go. So let's come back and look at, from our observations, to the proportions to the hand. We draw a mitten. We have our thumb. And then we have it come back to our wrist. Now, if this is the wrist, from here to here, as we said, these are about equal, so that means the halfway point from here to there is actually where our knuckles will be. This thumb then is a little bit longer than it should be for that knuckle, but not quite. But I'm going to shorten that up a little bit right here. All right? So getting that a little bit shorter makes it a little bit easier for me to see that to be accurate. Now, we have one line, we have two lines, we have three lines, 1, 2, and 3. And now we have to just round these out. Middle finger, index, finger beside, and this one is interesting because it's about that knuckle point shorter. What I mean by that is if we look down here, 1, 2, 3 equal pieces, 1, 2, 3. This gives us our knuckle points for these, as well as these, and also where that one roughly is as well, our pinky. This is how I build up a hand in proportion. And when we take a look at it in a different light, let's take it and we'll take it a little bit more open like this. The thumb coming down here. There is my wrist again. There's where the arm goes. From wrist to here are equal. I'll bring it back a little bit. See, you've got to think about how equal. Remember the paper method where you could take a piece of paper and make a ruler and then check that out. This is our wrist line here, or knuckle line. This is where the thumb is, just a little bit shorter. If we put it together, it might come a little bit longer right there. And now, as I say, we've got the 4 fingers, so 3 lines in between, 1, 2, and 3. So if we start with this finger, we come down to this one, we go down to this one, and then we come to our pinky, we will now have our 3 lines, 4 fingers, and our thumb. And that gives us the basics to the hand. Now, observation is always key. So if it is actually about here, this would be about half your fingers, so from here, so that would be about half that wrist. And it's observation and connection. So drawing hands, if you have the arm coming down and you have a hand, look for where the thumb is, create a mitten, and this one is kind of on the side like a cup like this, okay? When we take the wrist, we find the knuckle point, which is halfway, and we can then work ourselves down to the finger points right there like that. Now I'm hoping that makes it as simple, but that actually works very often for what I'm doing. And again, I can't stress enough observation. Look at your hands, use your hands, but also know that the primary proportion is that these 2 points are really quite equal, and that can give you from there. Feet, well, let's switch to feet for a second. We go to our feet in that sense here. If we have the side view of our calf coming down, and we have from our knee right here coming down to where our ankle point is, as I mentioned, we could go with a right angle triangle from there. This right angle triangle is the basic shape of a side view of a foot. From there, we just need to make the curves. This is the ankle curving around like this, cupping inwards to the ball of the feet. And then we have our big toe, or small, depending on it. You can add smaller ones, and then just a gentle curve upwards. And that gives us the side view foot. The thing to remember is an inside triangle shape makes it easy for this idea. The same applies then, is if you have a knee right here, we have the calf coming down here, inner calf, and there's our ankle point. Using an equilateral triangle like this will give us our basic shape for the foot. Now, if this is the outside of the calf, this means the big toe is on the inside. Draw a toe, draw the next one, next one, next one, and next one. Sometimes our triangles can be a little bit larger than that. You can always put a little line for your toenail. And instead of the triangle, make it curve a little bit so it feels a little bit more organic or soft to the idea. There's one last one here for the foot, and that is one that comes on a 3/4, they call it. So this is coming directly towards you, that's going on the side, and a 3/4 would mean that it would be coming down, not going side to side or straight towards you, but on an angle like this. Well, we have to look at the basic shape, but it's not a shape, it's actually a form. Something interesting in words that we talk a little bit more in arts, okay, shape equals the 2D sort of drawing. So shape would be something like that. Form, as a sculptor, it equals the 3D idea of something. So that means that instead of a triangle, we would have a pyramid like this, and that's the 3D. So these are 2 shapes that help us create this. And this one here, though, if we have our leg coming down here to our ankle bone, this would be the line or direction in which the foot is coming from. It is smaller, moving outwards to larger, and it gets thinner, almost like a block of cheese here, like this. When you have this basic form, we can now actually create the bigger toe if it's on the inside, the next toe, the next toe, the next toe, and the next toe. And then it's a matter of looking at the softer flow on which your foot actually has, and you'll get it from there. So 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, shape, form, and these are the basics of how to create a foot or feet. So from hands to feet, some of the most simple and easier lessons I can give to you today.